Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton. Picture this, you've just hit the jackpot. We're talking life-changing, never-work-again lottery money. What's your first move? When researchers posed this question, the answers were absolutely wild. One person said they'd build a fort entirely out of money and just hide inside it. Another wanted to fill a bathtub with cash, sit in it smoking a cigar, and send glossy photos to anyone who came begging. Someone else dreamed of buying their own private mountain with a tiny house on top, miles away from civilization. These fantasies might sound a bit crazy, but they tell us something fascinating about how we think about money. When we imagine having tons of it, our gut reaction is to buy things and wall ourselves off from the world. Money forts, private mountains, these are dreams about stuff, for us and us alone. But here's the twist. What if those very instincts, the ones that feel so completely natural, are actually pointing us in exactly the wrong direction when it comes to happiness? That's the central puzzle of Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton. This isn't your typical book about making more money. There are thousands of those already. This book tackles something far more interesting. How can we use the money we already have to maximize our happiness? The authors, two brilliant professors, went on an incredible journey to find the answer. They didn't just theorize from their offices. They actually went out and gave cash to complete strangers, with one catch. The recipients had to spend it exactly as instructed. What they discovered was genuinely revolutionary. They found that simply changing how we spend as little as $5 can dramatically shift our happiness over the course of a single day. Today, we're diving into the 5 principles they uncovered. This isn't about spreadsheets or stock portfolios. This is about investing in your own joy. By the end, you'll understand why that bigger house might be one of the worst happiness investments you can make, why commercials can actually enhance your TV watching experience, and how spending money on others might be the most wonderfully selfish thing you can do for yourself. This is the science of smarter spending. Our story starts with a classic dilemma. Elizabeth Dunn, one of the authors, had just wrapped up a decade of university life and finally started earning real money. As a young professor with cash in her pocket, she faced a big question. What should she actually do with it? Being a scientist, she didn't call a financial advisor. She dove into the research. She discovered thousands of studies on money and happiness, and they almost all said the same thing. Beyond a certain point, more money doesn't buy much more happiness. In the United States, for example, once you're pulling in around $75,000 a year, earning more barely budges your day-to-day feelings of joy. People thought doubling their income from $25,000 to $55,000 would double their happiness. The reality? They were only about 9% more satisfied. This was puzzling. If money isn't making us happier, are we just terrible at spending it? This question led her to team up with Michael Norton, a professor at Harvard Business School. Together, they designed a beautifully simple experiment. They approached random people on the street, handed them an envelope with either $5 or $20 inside, and gave them one of 2 sets of instructions. Half were told to spend it on themselves by 5 p.m. that day, maybe on a bill, a coffee, or a little self-gift. The other half were told to spend it on someone else, a gift for another person, or a donation to charity. That evening, they called everyone back with one simple question: how happy are you right now? The results were striking. People who spent the money on themselves were no happier than they'd been that morning. But the people who spent it on others, they reported a significant happiness boost. And here's the kicker. It didn't matter whether it was $5 or 20. The amount made zero difference. How they spent it was everything. This elegant little experiment cracked open an entirely new way of thinking about money. It's not about how much you have. It's about what you do with it. This led to the first and perhaps most radical principle of happy money: invest in others. We're hardwired to feel good when we give. This isn't just cultural programming. It appears to be fundamental human nature. The authors found this pattern all over the world. In a massive survey spanning 136 countries, from the richest to the poorest, People who donated to charity reported greater life satisfaction. This held true even after accounting for their income. In fact, donating to charity had a similar impact on happiness as doubling a household's income. Let that sink in for a moment. We spend our lives chasing bigger paychecks, but simply giving some of that money away can provide the same emotional lift. This joy of giving emerges incredibly early. In another clever study, researchers gave toddlers a bowl of goldfish crackers. The toddlers were happy. Then they were given the chance to give one of their own crackers to a puppet named Monkey. The researchers carefully watched their facial expressions, and what they observed was remarkable. The toddlers were happier giving away their own treat than they were when they first received the crackers. There's something pure and innate about the joy that comes from sharing what we have. Of course, not all giving feels good. If you've ever felt pressured by a coworker to donate to their kid's fundraiser, you know that feeling cornered can drain all the joy from the act. The authors identified 3 keys to making giving genuinely feel great. First, make it a choice. When we freely choose to give, the act becomes far more rewarding. Second, make a connection. We feel happier when we can see the person or cause we're helping. That's why donating to a specific project, like buying a microscope for a particular classroom, feels better than contributing to a huge, anonymous fund. And third, make an impact. Knowing our small contribution made a real difference is incredibly powerful. This principle is so potent that some of the world's smartest companies are using it. Google, for instance, allows any employee to give a $150 bonus to any other employee, no manager approval needed. Their research shows these small, peer-to-peer bonuses make people happier and are more effective than much larger bonuses coming from executives. It transforms a simple financial transaction into a moment of genuine connection and recognition. So the first big secret to happy money is this beautiful paradox. Making yourself a little poorer by giving to others can make you feel richer in the ways that truly matter. But what about the money we spend on ourselves? Should we just give everything away? Of course not. The authors then explored how we can spend on ourselves in ways that bring lasting joy. This brings us to the second principle: buy experiences. Think back for a moment. Recall a purchase you made that was a physical object, a new phone, some clothing, a gadget. Now think of a purchase that was an experience, a trip, a concert, a special dinner with friends. Which memory makes you happier? If you're like most people, it's the experience. Study after study shows that experiences bring more lasting happiness than material things. But why? The authors point to one of the biggest purchases most people ever make: a house. We're constantly told that home ownership is the foundation of the American dream. We imagine that a bigger, nicer house will make us endlessly happy. But the research is shocking. There's almost no evidence that buying a home, or even upgrading to a nicer one, increases overall happiness. People who move into their dream home report being much more satisfied with their house, but their satisfaction with their lives overall doesn't budge. In one study of women in Ohio, homeowners weren't any happier than renters, though they were, on average, 12 pounds heavier. Material things, from fancy cars to beautiful homes, have a critical flaw: we adapt to them. That gorgeous new couch quickly becomes just the couch. That shiny new car becomes just the thing that gets you to work. This process, called hedonic adaptation, is the great enemy of lasting happiness from material goods. Experiences, however, are largely immune to this effect. Why? First, experiences connect us to other people. We rarely travel alone or go to concerts by ourselves. Experiences are inherently social, and social connection is one of the most powerful drivers of human happiness. Second, experiences make better stories. Nobody wants to hear the technical specs of your new television, but the story of that time you got lost in a foreign city, or the incredible encore at that concert. Those stories become part of who you are. They're unique and can't be easily compared. You might regret buying a phone when a newer, better model launches a month later, but you'll never regret that trip with your best friends. It's comparing apples to oranges. you're far less likely to experience buyer's remorse with an experience. In fact, our experiences become a central part of our identity. When researchers asked people to draw a circle representing their sense of self and then draw circles for their most important purchases, people consistently drew their experiential purchases, trips, concerts, road trips, much closer to their core sense of self than their material possessions like watches or computers. We are the sum of our experiences, not the sum of our possessions. This insight is being brilliantly used by entrepreneurs like Will Dean, the founder of Tough Mudder. He created an event where people actually pay for the privilege of crawling through mud, getting electrocuted, and running through fire. On paper, it sounds absolutely miserable. But as an experience, it's incredible. It's challenging. It builds camaraderie. Some obstacles are literally impossible to overcome alone, and it gives you an amazing story to tell. The reward isn't even a medal. It's an orange headband and the knowing nods from fellow mudders you spot on the street days later. It's a community built around a shared, unforgettable experience. So the second principle of happy money is to shift your spending away from things and toward doing. Even small experiences, a trip to a museum, a special meal, provide a bigger happiness return than a material good at the same price. Now, even if we focus on buying experiences, there's another happiness killer that can creep in: abundance. This brings us to the third principle: make it a treat. Comedian Sarah Silverman has a simple philosophy: if you want to enjoy these things, you have to make it a treat. This is profoundly wise and backed by mountains of research. Abundance, it turns out, is the enemy of appreciation. When something wonderful is always available, we're less inclined to savor it. Think about chocolate. The first bite is heaven, but the 10th, not so much. In one study, students who ate a piece of chocolate one week enjoyed it less when they returned for a second piece the following week. Their pleasure diminished. But one group was different. Some students were asked to give up chocolate completely for that week between sessions. When they came back and ate that second piece, they enjoyed it just as much as the first. Temporarily giving something up restored their ability to appreciate it. This principle explains a common phenomenon. Why do London residents rarely visit Big Ben? Or New Yorkers the Statue of Liberty? When something is always available, we think, I can do that anytime. And anytime often becomes never. We lose our appreciation for it. This doesn't mean living a life of extreme deprivation. The authors aren't suggesting you give up coffee entirely. Instead, they recommend turning it back into a treat. If you grab a fancy latte every single day, it quickly becomes routine, just a caffeine delivery system. But if you switch to regular coffee during the week and save that latte for Friday, Friday becomes latte day. You anticipate it, you savor it, and the experience feels renewed. This idea applies even to our biggest purchases. Researchers at the University of Michigan studied car ownership. They asked people how much they enjoyed driving. You'd think someone with a $40,000 BMW would be way happier behind the wheel than someone with a Ford Escort. But for the average, everyday drive to the grocery store, there was zero relationship between the car's value and the owner's enjoyment. We adapt to even the nicest things. The retractable hardtop and premium sound system just fade into the background. But there was one exception. When researchers asked about the last time people drove their car just for fun, a joyride on a winding road, the owners of expensive cars did report more pleasure. The problem? Those joyrides were incredibly rare. By making driving a treat instead of a chore, they unlocked the happiness potential of their purchase. Companies like KFC and McDonald's have mastered this principle. The McRib sandwich or the KFC Double Down aren't permanent menu items. They're brought back for a limited time only, creating excitement and appreciation that would never exist if they were always available. Disney does the same thing with its classic movies, locking them away in the Disney vault for years at a time. Scarcity creates appreciation. The lesson is simple but powerful. Limiting your access to the things you love may be the best way to ensure you keep loving them. Turn your favorite things back into treats. So far, we've explored what we buy investing in others, buying experiences, and making them treats. But there's another crucial resource that money can purchase, one we often overlook. This brings us to the fourth principle: buy time. By letting us outsource our most dreaded tasks, scrubbing toilets, mowing lawns, assembling furniture, money can fundamentally change how we spend our time, freeing us up for the things we're passionate about. Yet research shows that wealthier people don't necessarily spend their time in happier ways. They fail to use their money to buy themselves happier time. One of the most miserable experiences in modern life is the daily commute. It's a consistent source of stress and frustration. Yet people routinely choose longer commutes in exchange for a bigger house in the suburbs. The very house we've already learned won't make them happier. They trade time, a genuine source of happiness, for stuff which isn't. This is what researchers call a, quote, focusing illusion. When we think about the bigger house, we focus on the lovely image of a backyard and an extra bedroom. We fail to consider the daily reality of being stuck in traffic for 2 hours every day. The author suggests asking a simple question before any major purchase: how will this change the way I use my time? When you frame decisions in terms of time rather than money, you often make very different and much happier choices. In one experiment, people were asked to think about either time or money before doing a series of tasks. Those primed to think about time chose to spend more of their day socializing with others, while those primed to think about money chose to work more. We know socializing is a source of happiness, while working more often isn't. Just shifting your focus from money to time can steer you toward more fulfilling activities. Companies are catching on. Instead of just offering money as rewards, some offer time. Intel, for example, offers employees an 8-week paid sabbatical after 7 years of work. Home Depot gave a top-performing employee the ultimate gift of time. They hired a handyman to tackle her entire home to-do list so she could spend her free time with family instead of doing chores. So the fourth principle is to use money to buy back your time. Pay someone to handle the tasks you hate. Choose a smaller home with a shorter commute. Think about your time as the precious, finite resource it is, and use your money to protect it. Finally, we come to the fifth principle, which deals with the psychology of the transaction itself. Pay now, consume later. Our modern world, with credit cards and one-click buying, is designed for us to consume now and pay later. You see it, you want it, you get it. The bill comes later. While convenient, the authors argue this is exactly backward for our happiness. Why? Because delaying consumption introduces one of the most powerful and completely free sources of happiness: anticipation. Think about a vacation. Researchers in the Netherlands found that the biggest happiness boost from a trip doesn't come during the trip itself, or even after. It comes in the weeks before the trip. The period of anticipation, planning, dreaming, looking at pictures of the destination, is a huge source of pleasure. By consuming immediately, we rob ourselves of this joy. One of the authors, students, shared a perfect story. As a child, she desperately wanted a teacher Barbie. She asked for it as a gift and spent weeks preparing for its arrival, setting up her other dolls as students. She got nearly all her pleasure from the doll before she even owned it. A few days after it arrived, it was just another Barbie in the pile. The anticipation was the best part. Delaying consumption also makes the eventual experience better. When we have to wait for something, we build up what the authors call a drool factor. In one study, people who had to wait 30 minutes to eat a Hershey's Kiss enjoyed it more than people who got to eat it right away. The short wait made it taste better. The other half of this principle is pay now. Paying for things can be painful. Neuroscientists have found that seeing a high price can activate the same brain regions associated with physical pain. Credit cards are like anesthetic against this pain. We swipe the card and don't feel the sting until the bill arrives, completely disconnected from the joy of the purchase. When you pay for something up front, long before you consume it, something magical happens. By the time you get to the experience, it feels free. Think of an all-inclusive resort. You pay for it months in advance. When you're there, ordering drinks by the pool, each margarita feels like a free bonus, which enhances the pleasure. If you had to pull out your wallet and pay for each one, the experience would be completely different. Paying now and consuming later puts the pain of paying in the past and allows you to savor both the anticipation and the eventual consumption without any financial buzzkill. It's a simple shift, but it fundamentally changes the emotional landscape of spending. So there you have it. The 5 principles of happy money. Invest in others, buy experiences, make it a treat, buy time, and pay now, consume later. It's a simple, elegant framework for turning the money you have into a life that's richer, fuller, and happier. When you step back and look at these 5 principles together, you realize they all point to one powerful idea: intentionality. So much of our spending is mindless. We follow our instincts, we do what advertisers tell us, and we chase the things we think will make us happy: a bigger house, a fancier car, more stuff. But the authors show us that our instincts are often completely wrong. The most profound lesson in this book, for me, is the shift from a mindset of accumulation to a mindset of experience. We live in a culture that glorifies ownership, but this book provides scientific proof that a life rich in experiences will always be happier than a life rich in things. A weekend trip with friends will pay happiness dividends for years to come in the form of stories and memories, long after the latest gadget is obsolete. This isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it's a practical guide for allocating your resources for maximum well-being. The principle of invest in others is equally transformative. It challenges the deeply ingrained idea that the purpose of money is to serve ourselves. The authors demonstrate that generosity isn't just a moral virtue, it's a pathway to personal joy. The fact that the emotional rewards of giving show up in 2-year-olds and are consistent across the globe suggests we're fundamentally wired for connection and contribution. When we use our money to strengthen social bonds or help someone in need, we're fulfilling a deep human need, and happiness is the natural result. What makes this book so practical is that it doesn't require a massive life overhaul. It's about small, deliberate shifts. You don't have to sell your house and donate all your money to charity. You can start by taking $5 and buying a coffee for a friend instead of yourself. You can turn your daily indulgence into a weekly treat. You can spend an hour researching a future trip, savoring the anticipation. Here are a few simple actions you can take today to put these ideas to work. First, conduct a happy money audit. For 1 week, track your discretionary spending. At the end of the week, don't just look at the categories. Color code each purchase according to the 5 principles. How much went to experiences? To others? To buying time? How much was just for stuff? The results might surprise you and reveal an obvious opportunity for a small shift. Second, plan a future treat. Buy a ticket for a concert or movie that's a month away. Pay for it now, then allow yourself to look forward to it. Notice how the anticipation itself becomes a source of pleasure. Third, reclaim 30 minutes. Identify one dreaded chore you do every week. This week, pay someone to do it for you, or use a service to outsource it. It could be grocery delivery, a cleaning service for just one room, or a wash and fold laundry service. Then use that reclaimed 30 minutes to do something you genuinely love. Read a book, call a friend, or just sit quietly. Ultimately, happy money isn't just about money. It's about how to live a more conscious, connected, and joyful life. It reminds us that our resources are tools, and with the right knowledge, we can use them to build not just a bigger bank account, but a better life. That was the book summary of Happy Money by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton. We've covered the big ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It can show you the beautiful pictures, but it can never replace the feeling of actually being there. The real magic of this book is in the stories, the details of the fascinating studies, and the way the authors connect these profound ideas. This summary is your starting point, a way to see if this journey is one you want to take. If any of these principles have sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely rewire how you think about every dollar you spend. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe. We're building a community of curious minds here, exploring the very best books that can help us grow. By subscribing, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.